Podcast. And I'm Captain William Mayhem.
And I'm Quartermaster Morton.
And I'm Navigator Davey Longwood. And now we're going to the show.
Ready? Fire in the hole. Hi, finally we're on there. Hey crew, how you doing? Quartermaster?
Doing good, Captain.
Navigator?
Fine, Captain.
Probably the delay is the captain's fault. He's getting old. And he's not tech savvy. So
right.
More than likely that's it. But hey, how did everybody like that new intro we made? That is a great intro. And yes, we really did fire that cannon. How about that? Well, we'd like to thank everybody for tuning in last week, our first episode. We now have 100 subscribers there on our podcast page, on the YouTube page. And there are 4 videos on that page. And combined, all 4 of them in the last 2 weeks have gotten over 1,000 views. So we're doing well. We thank you for every one of you. Remember to click and subscribe. And hit that little bell for all those warnings that you need to get. And Captain Blackheart. Ahoy there, Captain and crew. Thank you, Captain Blackheart. We appreciate you being there.
Welcome.
So let's talk about a couple of the things the St. Augustine Swashbucklers are about to do. We are getting ready to join forces with Pink Up the Pace. It's a 5K run through the streets of St. Augustine, and the Swashbucklers, well, we man a water station just for the runners coming by. Make sure they have plenty of water. No, I do not run in this race. And then after we've given them all the water, it works out for our timing to run over to St. George Street and wave flags and cheer them on the rest of the way. We've done Pink Up the Pace now for about 5 years, and it's been a lot of fun, and it's a good cause here in St. Augustine. You can go to their website, pinkupthepace.com, and learn all about what they do. But in a nutshell, it's all about breast cancer awareness, and they're doing a fine job. And we're proud to be a part of what they do. The St. Augustine Swashbucklers, Captain Mayhem, and now Captain's Quarters Podcast. We are working with them. So that's a good thing. What do you say, Quartermaster? Pretty good?
Oh,
I like it.
Yeah, very good. So we want to tell you about my acting seminar. It's a week away, and if you'd like to join up, why, we'd love to have you. There's all the information, but I believe the Quartermaster put together a quick video. Go ahead and pop that up there, Quartermaster.
Aye, Captain.
It's almost time for another one of my acting seminars, Mayhem's acting seminar. What is it, you may ask? Well, it's an opportunity for us to sit and have lunch together. I'll share my 46 years of experience in the entertainment world and help you hone your skills, whether you be pirate or reenactor, cosplay, superhero, public speaker, whatever it is. I'll share my ideas and hope that I can help you hone your skills, and then you'll even enjoy more of being an actor. Come see us. It's about time. Mayhem's acting seminar. Click the link and come join us.
And it's Captain. 3 hours of us just sitting and talking about how to hone your skills as a performer. Thank you, Scarlett, for that testimonial. I do believe you attended last time several months ago, and I enjoyed having you there. So thank you very much, Scarlett. So let's talk about one other thing. The St. Augustine Swashbucklers Halloween Spooktacular. It'll be coming up soon. In fact, this week we start building in the yard behind us, and that yard is going to be filled with Halloween things. Skeletons and singing pumpkins and illusions, even a mermaid or two, and a graveyard that will put chills in your bones. We want everybody to come out. When we do this, we open it to the public. It'll be open to the public the 22nd and 23rd, 28th, 29th, 30th, and 31st, the 3 nights of Halloween weekend. And we accept donations of all kinds. food donations for pets, human donations for humans, and or cash donations. Last year, we gave over 250 pounds of pet food to the Humane Society and about the same amount of poundage to food banks in the local area. So come on out and enjoy the Halloween with us on those 5 nights, make a donation, and help the community that we all live in together. Thank you very much. And now it's time to talk about
The Treasure Museum, Captain?
it is the Treasure Museum, the St. Augustine Pirate and Treasure Museum. Now, if you remember last week, we showed you a map of the Pirate Museum. And we told you that there are 12 hidden artifacts in that museum. And we're going to show you one a week. We're not going to show you where it's at, but we are going to show you each one of the 12 artifacts over the next 12 weeks. And tonight's artifact fits in with us. What was that, Quartermaster?
Here you go, Captain. This is the artifact for today.
It's one of my favorites.
Ah, very good. Since tonight we're talking about Pedro Menendez and the founding of St. Augustine, Chart a Course is the artifact. The charting kit from 1690. That's a long time ago. That's one of the hidden artifacts. Those are the tools they needed when they were charting their course, using the maps and the navigational tools that they needed to figure their way around the world through the 7 seas. That's one of them. Next week we'll have another one, and every week thereafter. So come on down to the Pirate Museum and enjoy a good treasure hunt with us. Thank you very much. But we've talked enough about swashbucklers, the Pirate Museum. How about a little history on St. Augustine? You know, St. Augustine became St. Augustine in the year 1565, September 8th to be exact. But I don't take my word for it. I have somebody here that will actually tell you more about this entire endeavor that becomes St. Augustine, Florida, the oldest continually inhabited city in the entire United States. So, ladies and gentlemen, I am bringing you a very good friend of mine. We've been friends now since 2008. He's a historian, he's a reenactor, and there's some other things he does too, like he's an actor also. And ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Mr. Chad Light.
Hello.
Hey, Chad, how you doing?
Everyone, how are you?
So, Chad, I introduce you to Quartermaster Morin
Quartermaster.
and Navigator Davey Longwood.
Hi.
Navigator, how are you?
Now, we tease him a lot because he's got a baby face.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, I don't think he shaves yet.
No, he's never seen a
I don't
razor.
think he shaves yet. So, you've been involved in St. Augustine's history for, well, let's just take it a step back. You and I have been friends since Hellfire of 2008, right?
Correct.
Yes. And we've been friends ever since.
Yeah,
We have some great conversations on history,
yeah, we do.
which I really enjoy. And I've learned a lot from you, more
I've learned a
so.
lot from you.
Well, and it's been wonderful to have those kind of conversations. And there are some reenactors in town that I truly do enjoy sitting down, having a drink, and talking to them.
Right.
We won't talk about the others, but you're really up on Pedro Menendez. In fact, so much up on Pedro Menendez that you portrayed him too. And we're going to show some people that later in this cast here.
Right.
But you portrayed him. So let's first start with you telling us, in your opinion, what kind of a man was he? And I know that could open up the door for an entire conversation, but we've got questions that are going to be asked. But
No, but actually, I've been asked that question a lot, and the one-word answer is he was pragmatic.
pragmatic.
Yeah.
Oh,
See,
wow,
there's a
child.
good word. I put it up so we can watch if anybody
Yeah.
sends us any
And
message.
by pragmatic, he was practical. There were times where he made decisions that seemed to conflict with other decisions that he would make later, meaning that people often think, well, he didn't know what he thought or what he believed in. No, what he believed in was making things work at that time. And so that practicality would come through. And that shows throughout his entire career as an adult. And even as a kid, you can see hints of it. So
Well, that sets in well with what we know, because we know when he comes here to September 8th, his first real chore is to get rid of the French.
His first real chore is to get his foot in the door that he needs to really establish, because he's the 9th Spaniard under his own money, because there were 9 others under their own money. He's the 9th to attempt a settlement in what the Spanish called Florida, which at the time wasn't just this peninsula that we live on.
No, it was huge.
This stretched up to Nova Scotia, west of the Mississippi River. I mean, this was a huge area, and they had tried and failed miserably every time before, starting with Don Juan Ponce de Leon.
So do we simplify the story then by for the most part, when we talk about, especially in the Pirate Museum, are we simplifying the story when we say that he came here because the king needed him to get rid of these French Huguenots, these French Protestants?
It is an oversimplification, but what it does is it focuses on one of the more, let's say, spectacular instances of Menendez and the establishment of St. Augustine. I mean, you can't overlook it. I mean, There's no way to overlook what happened in the month of, the late September, October. So you've got to deal with that. And because you have to deal with that, it overshadows everything else.
It does. So was Pensacola one of those Spanish?
Yes.
Which has always been an argument between St. Augustine and Pensacola.
It's an argument, but the thing of it is, the argument is always made by people that don't understand the actual history.
Right. Absolutely.
So Pensacola is in a location that the Spanish had attempted to start a settlement in 1559. So Tristan de Luna had come there in 1559, and they started Gracia Real de Santa Rosa, and it failed within about a year, and they left. Like every other conquistador before them that had come to St. Augustine, again, starting with Don Juan Ponce de Leon, De Soto, Narvaez, I mean, all those guys. It just,
Cortez was a little earlier.
So Cortez had gone to Mexico, and Cortez went to Mexico the same year that Ponce de Leon came back to Florida. So there's this crazy instance where Ponce de Leon is killed in Southwest Florida. He's got these ships and all of this money, and everyone's trying to figure out what to do. And he's dead. So like, all right, we're going to take him back to Havana. However, the family is like, all right, we're going to send him back on a small ship. We're taking everything else and all his gear, and we're taking it to Veracruz, and we're selling it to Cortez because he's buying everything with gold. No promissory notes or anything else. He's buying with gold. And so Cortez in 1521 turns into this black hole that's just scooping in all of the gear that's supposed to go to these other places, but ends up in Mexico because he's hit the jackpot, and he did. He definitely did.
Wow. So the start of the Spanish trail by the Spaniards to go all the way across the country building missions,
yeah,
starts in St. Augustine.
It does start in St. Augustine, and so you've got this, and it was built in pieces and parts, but what ended up was basically Highway 10, if you follow it,
right,
or 90 in the way that it all goes. So from St. Augustine to San Diego, you have this mission trail of missions that all connected at one point. And there wasn't a lot of commerce going on at the time, but this was a King's Road that went from St. Augustine, Florida to San Diego, California, before any concept of highways was ever thought of or engendered by, modern technology. And so it's one of the reasons why there's a marker in St. Augustine and there's a marker in San Diego that commemorate that trail.
Have you been to the mission that's in Tucson, Arizona?
I've been to Tucson and San Diego. And yes, it's all there. And like I said, it was all done in pieces and parts, but in its heyday, it was a continuous trail. It could be taken back and forth from San Diego to St. Augustine
I've been to the
under Spanish law.
I've been to the mission in Tucson. It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
The Ship of the Desert, I think it's called.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's wonderful. So, Quartermaster, we getting a lot of questions in there. I know you have a question for Chad. You want to throw it out there?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just noticed that.
The ship's cat made an appearance.
Yeah.
What's that?
David,
The ship's cat made an appearance.
Davey grew a tail.
The cat? Well, and I see that somebody noticed that my dog is tap dancing in the background too.
Yeah.
They did.
Yes, they did.
Well, we got to have some entertainment here also.
He's a good boy.
Yeah. So,
Chad, one of the questions that I had for you, I know that you do reenactment, obviously. Is there any other cities outside of St. Augustine that you've done reenactments for as Pedro Menendez?
As Pedro Menendez, so during the 450th, I went to a lot of cities in Florida,
Okay.
as well as Georgia and South Carolina at events to portray Pedro Menendez, because at the time, as we've stated earlier,
Mhm.
Florida on the Spanish map took over a lot of states going all the way up the East Coast and West. And so there are a lot of cities in South Carolina, Georgia, Tennessee that still have the Spanish names, and those go west to Louisiana. Now, there's lots of cities west of the Mississippi that have Spanish names, but those came later. And so as Menendez, I was really focused on the southeast part of the United States. And so, yeah,
Okay.
there were, if you were gonna count all the cities in Florida and Georgia and South Carolina, I easily went to 30 plus cities, including
Wow.
Tallahassee, for a lot of events to portray
Wow.
Menendez.
Well, we have a question here.
yeah, I saw that one. That's a very good question. Can you read it, Chad?
So,
Yeah.
what does Menendez family status
And ties to the
what
crown.
was okay? So, what was
Yes.
Menendez family status? So, Menendez came from a minor noble family in Asturias. This is a principality in Spain that is still there. They are very proud of Menendez. The Menendez family is still very prominent. So the Menendez and Sanchez and Alvarez families are all, which he was all a part of, were all very prominent in northern Spain at the time, and they still hold a lot of sway. So he came from a noble family, but his beginnings were, let's say, humble in the respect that he was the 19th son of a noble man and a second marriage. And so all of his brothers were ahead of him in line for any sort of, let's say, inheritance, because they were all using primogeniture, which, Google that. And so Menendez really had to start from the very beginning. I won't say with nothing, because that wouldn't be honest, but as a noble person of noble birth, he was starting from like next, as last as you can get, 19th son. And so
That's got to be worse than being a middle child.
But he was
well, yeah, and so he really was, from a noble standpoint, we do have to keep that in mind, starting from the bottom of the pile, but still being aristocratic.
So I'm going to throw a question in here because it just came to me, and then I'm going to get that one that just popped up.
That's a good.
So the question I have for you then is, are any of the other brothers, the 18 that were ahead of them, did any of them make a name for themselves in the history books?
Yes. In fact, his older brother was captain of the treasure fleet before Menendez became captain of the treasure fleets. And when Menendez became captain of the treasure fleets, his brother still had this huge shipping business that was helping to support and be a part of the treasure fleets. And being captain of the treasure fleets, this is an insanely important position during the golden age of the Spanish Empire.
Is it a lucrative position also?
Lucrative, oh my gosh.
Yeah,
yeah.
They're handling all the money.
Yeah.
But
Everything.
then his older brother became an admiral.
This is Halliburton. This is Halliburton in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Oh.
I mean, these guys, they've got a government contract to do everything.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
And so it could be super lucrative if you're good at crunching numbers and you don't go afoul of the law and the church.
But Chad, his brother did end up becoming an admiral, the older brother, right?
No, the older brother was an admiral before Menendez was.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So one of the questions that popped up, where does Pedro Menendez like to go do his party in? St. Augustine or Savannah?
Savannah didn't exist yet. So it's got to be St. Augustine.
There you go.
Good answer. Good answer.
There you go.
There was another great question that popped up. Well,
How many ships and men did he
Yes, how many
first have
ships?
when he come in?
say it again, because that question popped up the screen. Go ahead and do it again, Quartermaster.
He has it up. It says, how many ships? Wait, thank you, David. How many
He had
ships
five
and men
ships
did he?
and he had 5 ships and 800 people. Now,
Wow.
keep in mind that included about 120 women and children when they came in 1565. So it's one of the reasons that the Native Americans realized that this was not a military operation. They were actually here to try and establish a community. And it also helped in the relations with the Native Americans.
Now, he arrived here with 5 ships.
Right.
He didn't leave Spain with 5 ships.
No, he left Spain with, 23 ships, but they went to the Canary Islands, and by the time the ships that left the Canary Islands, it was down to 12. Well, how is that possible? There's a lot of reasons.
There's a lot of reasons. There are some stories of some of the ships not being as seaworthy as they needed to be.
Too much stuff on the ships.
Too
They're
much
taking
stuff.
on water. They couldn't get on the supplies that they needed to be able to leave with Menendez. You have to understand, Menendez was under an absolute ticking clock to get to Florida before Jean Ribault got to Florida. And spoiler alert, they didn't.
They didn't, because Ribault gets here in 63.
So yes, but Ribault left and came back.
Right.
So in 65, Ribault gets here 3 days before Menendez.
See, that's a piece of the story I wasn't even aware of.
Yeah. So
This is an interesting question.
Go ahead.
I'm sure Chad would know. Nightingale in Florida said there was a play years ago at the amphitheater about Menendez. In the play, he fell in love with one of the Indian maidens. Fact or fiction?
okay, so this is The Cross and the Sword. It was very famous. It was a musical.
It was our state play for a while.
No, it was the official state play for years and years. This is a Hallmark version of actual events. So there's a lot of fiction involved.
Okay.
Quartermaster, you got anything else?
Yeah, we got another question that just came in.
Pop it up there.
Can you talk about Pedro Menendez's role in designing both the Spanish galleon and the treasure fleet route?
Okay, so the treasure fleet route had been set up prior to Menendez becoming captain general of the fleet, and the treasure route was following the Gulf Stream, which had basically been set up or discovered, and the route set up as far back as Ponte de Leon. And this became critical for the Spanish because it allowed them to get back to Spain about 3 weeks earlier than they would have been able to get back if they had been following the easterly winds, and so this was like a critical issue.
This is a contribution. The discovery or the realization of the Gulf Stream is a contribution by Juan Ponce de Leon.
Yes, and and this is, well, Herrera documents it, and so we could debate Herrera all night. The point is, Menendez, his brother, and then Menendez used the Gulf Stream to get back to Spain. What Menendez did that's super important is he came up with the crescent formation for the ships that basically made it impregnable to outside attack from pirates or any corsairs, anybody else. This was also the same formation that was used by the Spanish in the English Channel in 1589 during the Spanish Armada. And it depends on how far you want to go down the rabbit hole, but it absolutely held up. The Spanish Armada did not start to fall apart until
The storms.
until they realized that they wouldn't be able to pick up the people from the Netherlands,
Right.
which was the plan. 60,000 troops, they would have marched all across Europe unopposed. Well, not unopposed, but the tercios would have been absolutely catastrophic on the English countryside. But the storms
The storm.
and the wind wasn't helping them, and so the crazy thought was, well, we're just going to go all the way around, and then it just went from bad to worse.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of reasons why.
This is a good question right here from
That's a
Ziggy
nice
Blues.
one. How did you get into portraying Menendez, and why him specifically?
So
I know why.
yeah,
I know why. Because he speaks Spanish, and when he's got his hair and his beard and everything.
no. If you look at the old photographs at the time, I had long hair in a braid. It was down past my waist. I had a big beard at the
Right.
time. I could speak Spanish. I had basically, I was asked to portray Menendez for one event, the landing for the Mission Nombre de Dios. And when I cut my hair and I did everything to portray Menendez for that one event, it just gradually turned into me portraying Menendez for basically everything for the 450th,
Right.
which culminated in the King and Queen of Spain and me standing on the balcony with them and the whole, all those, photographs and everything. And so that was really the pinnacle of it all.
And that was an
I
exciting
retired. All it was super exciting. But after that, I retired. I was like, okay, we're done.
That's because he knows when time to quit.
Yeah, when it was.
This is an interesting question. Abby's a student, and she wants to know, what was Pedro's official rank in the military?
He was Captain General of the Ocean Sea.
Is that like in modern day times an admiral?
More than an admiral.
More than an
so an admiral
Oh, wow.
is over a fleet. Captain General would be over all the fleets.
Okay.
Under in an area. And so so he comes to Florida as Captain General, and when he went back to Spain and came back to the Caribbean, he was made the governor of Cuba, and so he then became the Captain General of the entire Caribbean, meaning that his authority was absolute.
Wow.
Second to the Casa de Contratación and the king.
All right, I got a question for you, Chad. In your reenactment as Pedro Menendez, what was your most memorable moment, and which one was your most embarrassing one, if you don't mind me asking?
So let's start with the most memorable. So when the King and Queen of Spain were here, I was able to meet with them and be with them for more than an hour before we went on the balcony at the government house. And then all of the photos and videos that were taken of that, and then I was able to spend the rest of the day with them. And so That was a huge moment for me. My mother, who has Spanish ancestry, and my grandmother. I mean, that was, after that I could do no wrong. It was like, yeah, it was, you know.
So
when I was done eating, I could throw dishes into the kitchen and, you know, smash it, which I didn't do. But
So,
my point is, I just couldn't do any wrong.
for the time frame that you got to spend with the royal king and queen, was the conversation in Spanish, in English, or in both?
It was in Spanish. However, His Majesty speaks brilliant, I mean, impeccable English. He graduated from Georgetown University in Washington, D.C.
That I knew. I did.
So
know
he speaks impeccable English. His the Queen, Letizia, not so much. And so that's why, to be polite, because she was there for a lot of the conversation, we kept it in Spanish. And so creo que mi español no es suficiente por computación, but I did my best.
So we both have military background.
Yes.
We don't talk about them much, but we talk about them between us once in a while.
Sure.
We know. So we're aware of security situations, security issues. And you know that I had time up in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
So here's a question for you that's not about Pedro. It's not about anything else, but was the security for the king and queen just over the top?
So they had their own security detail, and there are guys who were super cool. You could all tell had submachine guns under their jackets, all of them. And it was, yeah. And at times it was, you know, it was kind of obvious. Then there was a secondary group of United States Secret Service.
Right.
And so when they were coming to the fort, the Castillo de San Marcos, I still had my sword on. Everybody else had taken theirs off. And they were like, hey, you got to get rid of that. And I brought up pictures on my phone, true story, pictures on my phone of the king and queen at Mount Vernon, where their color guard still had their swords on. And I said, listen, they had their swords on. Precedent has already been set. And so I'm going to keep my sword. He came back and he came back, okay, you can have yours. So I was able to keep my sword the whole time. It was pretty nuts.
That's pretty cool. So what
All
was
right,
most
so how about the
embarrassing?
most embarrassing one? There has to be one.
No, I haven't really thought about most embarrassing, as in, like, you know, if I had to do it over again,
Okay.
or something like that. I know that on the actual day, the dog has a squeaky toy. So on the actual day of the 450th, there was just a lot going on. There were
No, everybody knows in the captain's quarters.
so Mayhem
has
just
squeaky
looked so
toys.
dark. So some of it, all right. There was just a lot going on with protesters and everything else. And so when we were on stage, I was supposed to give the speech in English and Spanish for basically claiming Florida. And then the second part for establishing the hierarchy with the captains. And I was supposed to do both in English and Spanish.
Right.
Everyone is there. National television. It's all there. And I gave the first speech in English, the second speech in Spanish, and that was it. And so I was supposed to give both in English and Spanish, and I gave one in English, one in Spanish, and then that was the end of it. There was no redo.
All right.
So since we're talking about embarrassing moments, let's do the video. Can we do that?
Yeah, give me a quick second.
So let me cue it up verbally while you're getting it ready.
Okay.
For the 450th, Chad did a wonderful advertisement. It was an advertisement. And so we're going to share it with everybody. And it's well worth watching because it's humorous, but it's really well done too. You won awards for it too.
We did. We won awards locally, statewide, and nationally for the commercial. So
here it is, ladies and gentlemen.
And we'll put
Pedro Menendez returns to St. Augustine.
Our history is not the same old story, especially midweek, with lodging up to 30% off and plenty of parking.
Florida. It's so good to see you again. I'm an explorer who happens to be a conquistador.
You're not from around here, are you?
Well, that depends. You call this a flag?
Whoa, hey, man.
This is a flag.
Oh, on a boat?
Yes, of course. How else?
That's not regulation golf attire. I didn't see it at the pro shop.
Viva San Agustin!
Hey!
Viva Pontevedra!
Yeah.
I like these. You're 9? No. Nice castle! But you're going to need a moat. Well, I'm 493. You're also going to need loopholes in the towers to protect the oblique right angles. I'm very, very fascinated by this ice cream. It's delicious. When you get it up to about 2,000 degrees, can be worked like clay.
Hey, who's a new guy? Oh, he's really good. Yeah.
Did we get it all?
Let's keep it under the water.
Yeah. You don't go on me!
Gosh! No, that's a really shiny shark sword.
Senorita, please, that tickles. Oh, 2 against 1. That's fine with me.
Actually, the last time I was at the beach, my boyfriend takes me there whenever we want to be like fancy and go on long walks and stuff.
Ah! Oh, gracias, señorita. Hasta luego. I have to admit, a man in my profession could get used to this.
But he's not my boyfriend anymore. Now he's my fiance because he went to the beach last time and he asked me to marry him, and I was like, ah!
Nice.
Our history is not the same old story. There's always something new to discover.
Our history is not the same old story. That tickles.
Our history is not the same old story. Great rates from $64 to $399.
You had to have had fun doing that. And even now watching it, I'm watching you. You're smiling and giggling because it's a lot of fun.
No, I'm smiling because it reminds me of the time that we had on set, and it was a good time. There were good people.
How many days did it take for you to do all that?
We shot that in 3 days.
3 days. That's pretty good. That is pretty good. It is. It's. I think it's just fun to watch. I turned the guys on to a couple of other videos that we're now going to start figuring out some things that we want to do that are pirate oriented.
Yeah.
But that's a great video, and
our comments section is blowing up. Everybody's saying that how hysterical the video was. So you've got.
What was your favorite part of that video? Which one
of those?
Your favorite, besides holding the girl in the white bikini?
You know what? The girl in the white bikini, Rosa. I'm not going to say her last name.
That's all right.
But Rosa, she, very professional, super sweet. Obviously, we had some scenes where, we had to be together, ish, but she was great. And she and I are friends to this day.
Really?
She's great people. Yeah.
I know because I talked to the people of the VCB because they were part of the support for that, right?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, the VCB, it was their commercial.
So
it ran internationally.
It did run internationally. That was the amazing thing.
Yeah, that's why
it went in Europe. Yeah. It was all over the country. It was in Europe. It was.
No, I was getting emails from everywhere.
Yeah, it's a great. So being a reenactor sometimes has some privileges and perks, doesn't it?
No, it does.
It's really a lot of fun. So we've got a way for you to contact Chad if you want to talk to him or message him or tell him what a great job he does or.
Yeah, he both has a YouTube channel. He's got a Facebook and obviously the Instagram as well.
Right.
So the links are pretty long on the Facebook and the YouTube. So if you just look up Chad Light, you'll find him.
Yeah, I'm not hard to find.
No, and you've done some other acting too.
I have. The most notable would probably be the CBS show Hunted.
Yeah.
Which only ran 1 season, but that's probably the most well known as far as the number of people that were able to watch it. I've also done more than a dozen other television and movie roles. My IMDb page will kind of list all of those. But yeah.
And you also, and I should have asked you before we did this, so I know if I'm going to get in trouble for asking you or not. But aren't you one of the forces behind a movie that was done about
Oh,
early St. Augustine.
Yeah.
And that's a very important movie because it's about
yeah
the civil rights history of St.
Sure.
Augustine.
Freedom on Our Mind, which has its own Facebook page. So if you type in Freedom on Our Mind, it'll come up. This is a film that basically explains what went on here in St. Augustine from 1962 to 1964 in St. Augustine, and how St. Augustine, more than Mississippi and Alabama, all of which did an amazing part in the civil rights movement, but it was St. Augustine that really where all of the attention and the conflict prior to the signing of the Civil Rights Bill occurred.
Because there were certain things that happened. We don't have to talk about them or bring them up, but there were one or two things that happened here during that time that were not very pretty and made national news.
Oh yeah, the one that really stands out as far as national news goes is one of the local businessmen, Brock, out of frustration in an attempt to intimidate protesters out of the pool from the Monson Motor Lodge, he poured in bleach and muriatic acid and told them, "Hey, this is going to burn you." You know, he was yelling that. Oh, wait a minute. Well, the fact is, as diluted as it wasn't going to do anything.
It wasn't going to do anything.
But that's not what he was saying. And that's not what it looked like on national news. And so we have audio clips of Lyndon Johnson on the phone, basically saying, our foreign policy is going to hell in a handbasket. We've got people pouring acid in the pool in St. Augustine. I mean, it really became an international issue.
I mean, and the three of us have always, as we started planning this, we always say we're not going to envelop any kind of political stance in our show. But the only thing I'll say is because of the way it looked, not because of what actually happened. I mean, because like you said, it wasn't enough to hurt anybody.
Yeah.
But the
Brock,
appearance.
Brock knew that.
Yeah.
He knew he wasn't going to burn anybody. But that's not the way that it looked.
Right.
And to this day, that's not how it looked. And I'm not defending Brock. He did what he did. It's just that moment did become what it became. And, that's gone down in history. And so it is what it is.
I mean, if you look at things the way they look, and then you kind of look at the other side of the picture, and I'm going to bring this up because I know that you're an avid horse rider.
Are you going to talk about the guys at the border?
Yeah.
Oh my God! Because I was going to use that as an example.
Yes,
Listen, everybody. So there's a thing called two reins. So you've got one rein coming off of each side of each bridle. It's not connected in the middle, and this is how you control the horse. And so if you've got a photograph of a guy dodging to the left so he doesn't stomp on people, and he's telling people to get back, and he's controlling the reins, and one rein flips out, it's not a whip.
No, it's not a whip.
It has nothing to do with a whip. It's not a whip. You can't whip people with it. You can roll it to keep cattle going and stuff like that, but it's not a whip. And the fact that that's being used to try to say that they were whipping these Haitians from horseback is absolute nonsense.
It is. And my wife and I personally, we have friends that work on the border. We know that. And it's just, but more so, the story here is this. Like history, there are always more than one side.
Oh, absolutely.
And I'll throw this in. Sir Francis Drake attacks the city of St. Augustine in 1586, May 28th, 29th, and 30th, 3 days only. He attacks the city. When British people come into the Pirate Museum and they go, "What's Drake doing on the wall in the Pirate Museum?"
Right.
Because in the English history, he is a privateer.
Right, he's not a pirate.
We're talking Spanish history here. So,
but Elizabeth called him my pirate.
Yes, she did. She called him my
pirate. Before he was knighted.
Yeah.
And even asked, should I behead him or knight him? Yeah. I mean, it was almost like this thing on the dock. And then she had Robert knight him. And There's photo or paintings of her with the sword on his shoulder. That never happened.
No.
No, that
So
was
the
that
point.
was Dudley.
The point I'm trying to make with this, more so than anything else, and now it's civil rights, history, the knighting of Sir Francis Drake, history has more than one side, and that's why we have good conversations. That's why those people that do history in any way, shape, or form can have open, honest, genuine conversations, because we don't necessarily have to agree, but we also don't have to agree to disagree, because there are points on both sides. Well, and it's one of the reasons we've always had a good relationship.
No, it is. And you'll get different perspectives on, okay, there are facts. This is what happened. But what does that mean?
And what led to those facts?
Right. And so Drake, for instance, here's a guy, Winters raised Hawkins. Hawkins raised Drake as far as piracy goes. Right. And this had a huge effect on Drake's entire perspective on what they were doing. And Empire of Blue Water, The Pirate Queen. Those are books. It really lays out the absolute crucial part that the privateers played in England's slow rise to what would be dominance nautically, basically throughout the world. After the War of 1812, that was it. England was it. The United States wouldn't be even a blip on anyone's radar when it came to naval power until after the Spanish-American War.
Right.
And so it's everything. One thing leads to another, but it all connects. It's more complicated than anyone ever
usually it is
thinks on the surface.
And the reason I pull that point in is because, as we said in our first episode, and this episode now, we can talk about anything we want on our podcast, because this podcast belongs to me, Quartermaster Morin, and Davey Longwood. We can talk about anything. But we want everybody else to weigh in and give us your questions or give us your thoughts, because the only way people learn is when they share.
Oh, absolutely.
And if you don't share, then you're not going to learn. And then it just makes ruffled feathers. And we surely don't want ruffled feathers.
No, free speech.
We're at a point that I have to do two other things, but I'm not chasing Chad out. I'm going to do two things. The first thing I want to do is do a reminder for everybody on how to find us. We have our own YouTube channel, Captain's Quarters Podcast. And we'd love for everybody to go and subscribe and hit the bell and be a part of what we're doing, because, pardon me, we believe this is going to really take off and have a good time. We've already got the next 15 weeks planned. And then the other night I sat down and figured out that there are 52 Sundays all in the year 2022. And I've already planned 22 of the 52 Sundays already. And to show you how diverse we're going to be, October 30th is a Sunday in 2022. October 31st is the anniversary of Harry Houdini's death in 1926. Many people that are watching us know I'm a magician. So we're going to talk about Harry Houdini on that night. No. We don't have to talk about pirates all the time. We'll talk about Harry Houdini. We've got some other ideas to do some other things, which brings us to a segue. That's always a good thing. A segue into the next thing I want to tell you. Next week's guest star is somebody else that I've worked with for a long time, and she's going to give you plenty of information about belly dancing, tribal dancing, gypsy dancing. Gina Marie. I've worked with Gina Marie since about 2008 also. And I'm going to say this. One of the reasons I enjoy working with Gina, or that I enjoy having conversations with Chad and some of the other people, is that on a professional level, there's a mutual respect back and forth during performances, during planning, during conversations. And that's very important for professional people, to have a level of communication that's not insulting, doesn't create insults, but creates mutual respect. and having you on our second show, it was important to me to do that.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I have a gift for you. Now
What?
it's empty right now. We might fill it up at another time, but this is a ship's brew bottle. We have several of them around, and I thought maybe we could give you a gift for being here as a thank you.
Oh, thank you so much.
So
I appreciate
take
it.
that.
Thank you for coming.
When you're ready to have rum, you let me know. I'll buy the
will.
bottle. Whatever we
Yeah.
don't drink, we'll put back in that bottle.
No, sounds
Yeah.
good.
We can't let Davey have any because last night he proved that he drank all the bottle. It was his birthday yesterday, and he drank the entire bottle. The entire bottle he drank. But hey, so
Can you believe that, Longwood?
We still have a few minutes. I just wanted to get those things out of the way. Adam Lemons is one of the new members of the St. Augustine Swashbucklers. He plays music.
Oh, nice.
And he is going to be a real good crew member for us.
Good.
So we're doing a whole lot. The crew is built back up. Any other good questions in there, Mr. Morin?
Oh, Davey Long was actually navigating this one, Captain.
I'm actually navigating the questions.
What's that?
I've been navigating the questions, Captain.
Ah, very good. I have to say the glasses make you look more studious too. Either that or we put on stripy pants, you're going to look like Mr. Smee.
Yes. I had a hypothetical question.
Stop me, Smee. Stop me.
Go
I had a
ahead.
hypothetical question. So, if Pedro Menendez had been alive at the same time as Francis Drake, would he have been able to stop Drake from raiding St. Augustine? Do you
That's
think?
a good one.
We've had that conversation before, you and I, but more about the downfall of the Spanish Armada. Who would have been a better commander, Drake or Pedro?
Drake at the time at the height of Pedro Menendez, Drake didn't have the military experience that Menendez did or the number of successes. And so it's almost like pitting Napoleon against George Washington. Washington's great, but Napoleon just had more military experience, and that's all there is to it.
Right.
And so, I mean, you'd really have to. This would have to turn into a game of Axis and Allies, where you would really have to have a lot more specifics before you were able to speculate on who would have done this and that at a certain amount of time. We do know that the English did not want to go up against the Spanish tercios in equal numbers. And this held true into the 17th century. That said, there were Drake's, and he followed Hawkins. Their strategy was, and later on with Morgan, you show up with a lot of guys to a place that didn't have a lot of guys defending it, and a surprise attack. And then all you had to do is be decisive and aggressive,
right?
With overwhelming numbers, and the strategy worked very well for Winters, Hawkins, Drake, and Morgan.
Right.
Where it fell down later, and where Drake was killed, and Morgan's strategies all fell apart. The Spanish just started building bigger and bigger forts because they realized we have to. In the beginning, there were no defenses anywhere because they just weren't expecting anyone to attack. And so the heyday with Winters, Hawkins, and Drake, and then Morgan was gradually whittled down just because of Spanish defenses. And then the Spanish ran out of money because it's expensive.
Everything costs money. Yeah.
Yeah, including defense.
Yeah. So are you, now I know occasionally you still do a little bit of reenacting with some of the reenactors.
No, absolutely. We just had the 1812 or the 1821 event Here in St. Augustine, we still have Drake's Raid, Searle's Raid. We still have the Landing. All of these events still take place on an annual basis, and so that all takes place.
So, what's your knowledge on not just the War of 1812, but the Battle of New Orleans?
So
you don't have to explain it. And here's the reason why I asked. We picked a Sunday to do it. Maybe I should have you come back and we should do the Battle of New Orleans together, because that's a really good story.
The Battle of New Orleans is an amazing story, and it's a lot more complex and more exciting once you know everything that happened.
Right.
There really was a Jean Lafitte. There really were the Baratarians. But there's a lot of other stuff that was going on at the time that really makes that battle, which occurred after the Treaty of Paris had been signed, all the more interesting.
Yeah, that's the best part. One of the interesting parts that when you talk to people about the War of 1812 and the Battle of New Orleans, so many people were convinced that that's what ended the war. The war was over already.
The treaty had literally been signed. The ink was dropped.
Yeah, but there were no cell phones back then.
There were no cell phones. It was all
so it just makes a difference.
Had the British won, however, that could have changed things.
It would have changed things because they would have taken up the Mississippi River. Pardon me. They would have come up the Mississippi River with all those ships and all those men, and they would have.
Because the Treaty of Paris at the time didn't account for a Western war.
Yeah.
So people are like, well, it was fought for nothing. No, it wasn't. It made a huge difference on options for the British.
I think it also, and we are down to the last minute, but this is purely more of an opinion about history than it is fact. But I believe that was really about the last time in our history between the young United States and the British that they finally come to terms with the fact that we're not going to be beaten up and roughhoused ever again. And
they burned the Capitol.
Yeah.
Washington, D.C. was burned to the ground.
Yeah.
And they still didn't win.
No.
They were like, what? This doesn't make sense.
So they realized that the United States, by about 1819, is better as an ally than it is as an enemy.
Or to just be left alone. And then eventually we became allies. So
so the allied relationship we have with England.
It was really World War I where it was solidified as we are partners, part and parcel.
Yeah, very much.
And by the time the Second World War came along, it still had to be worked on. But after the Second World War, it was like England and the United States were peas in the pod. Peas and carrots.
I see it, BC. I saw the first one. Why is the rum always gone? I haven't even opened the bottle tonight.
I was waiting for you to get that one.
I'm waiting for later. But so this has been a great podcast tonight. I've had fun.
I have too.
And to share our second episode with a really good friend who's so knowledgeable on history. I even learned a few extra things again tonight. So that's the one adage I can say. You can teach an old pirate new tricks.
You can teach me new tricks all the time.
So I'm always open because history is so much fun. And my son, also William McRae, is going to be on an episode in December. December 5th is the week of Pearl Harbor, and he's very up on World War II history. So he wants to do the World War II history with us. Right. I don't know if he's watching tonight. I know he's supposed to be, but so we're going to do an episode there. He can't come from Alabama here, so we're going to put him on the screen. This thing.
Hey, Captain.
Yeah.
We're pulling into port.
I see that. It is about time to say goodnight and say goodbye. We appreciate everybody. We thank you all for tuning in. Spread the word. Put that back up there again, Mr. There you go.
Part of the podcast.
Part of the podcast. Part of the groove.
Always always.
All right, folks. Good night.
Talk to y'all later.